like, share, and subscribe.
The unfair advantage. Weaponize your past and win because of it. The forging. There are two kinds of people in the world: those who run from the fire and those who walk into it, knowing they'll never come out the same. The world doesn't tell you that. It tells you to chase comfort, to play safe, to keep your story polished and your scars hidden. It teaches you to believe that strength comes from protection, not pain. That success belongs to those born with clean slates and straight paths. But the truth is older, darker, and far more honest. Every masterpiece was once molten. You don't get to power without pressure. You don't get to wisdom without wounds. You don't get to peace without surviving the war. The forge is not gentle. It's not a place of candles and calm. It's the sound of steel screaming under heat. It's the smell of smoke, the hiss of something being reborn. And yet, if you've ever been through hell and walked out breathing, you already know what the forge feels like. You've lived inside it. You just didn't have a name for it. Maybe your forge was poverty. Maybe it was betrayal. Maybe it was growing up invisible or watching your dreams collapse in your hands. Maybe it was the long night of not knowing who you were, of being underestimated by everyone, including yourself. Whatever shape it took, it wasn't random. It was training. Pain is the oldest form of apprenticeship. It teaches you precision, humility, hunger. It strips away your illusions and shows you what's real. Every scar you carry is a certificate of survival, proof that you've been educated by experience itself. But the world calls that damage. It calls you broken. And so you try to hide it, to cover your past under success stories and motivational slogans. You build a mask of stability. You pretend the storms never happened. That's the mistake. Because while you're busy pretending, your real power stays buried beneath the ashes. The secret the powerful never reveal is this: the forge isn't the enemy. It's the birthplace of everything unbreakable. Look around at the giants who've shaped history, and you'll find the same pattern: defeat, despair, reinvention. Mandela learned leadership in a cell. Jobs rediscovered vision after humiliation. Rowling wrote in hunger. Every empire begins in ashes, not applause. The difference between them and the rest of the world wasn't privilege, it was perspective. They learned to translate pain into purpose. They let the heat harden them instead of hollow them. They understood that fire doesn't destroy gold, it reveals it. You too have gold inside you. It's just still in the fire. The question is not whether you've suffered. Everyone has. The question is whether you'll use it, whether you'll finally stop running from the smoke and start shaping what's burning inside it. Because until you do, you'll live at the mercy of the past. You'll react to memories instead of designing meaning. You'll flinch when life gets loud, not realizing the sound you fear is the hammer that makes you sharper. Forging is not about becoming someone new. It's about remembering what the pain already made you capable of. It's about seeing your scars as blueprints, not burdens. It's about turning every "why me" into "watch me." To live forged is to live awake. You don't wait for easy seasons to prove yourself. You build while it rains. You fight while you bleed. You dream while they doubt. That's how the fire becomes fuel. Most people never get this far. They stay on the edge of the forge, watching, complaining about the heat, blaming the flames. They want transformation without temperature. They want power without pressure. They want victory without vulnerability. But nothing magnificent was ever made that way. A sword is just metal until it meets the hammer. A soul is just potential until it meets adversity. The ones who rise are not the ones who avoided the fire. They're the ones who learned how to breathe in it. So here is the truth you were never told. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are being forged. Every heartbreak, every failure, every betrayal, these were not punishments. They were chisels, shaping something harder, wiser, and more precise inside you. You've been tempered for endurance. You've been tested for resilience. You've been refined for impact. The time for hiding is over. The forge was never meant to consume you. It was meant to crown you. You survived what others couldn't. That's not luck. That's evidence. And evidence is everything. So as this journey begins, remember this. You do not need a new beginning. You need a new meaning for what already began. Your past is not a scar. It's your signature. Your pain is not your prison. It's your power plant. The heat that once hurt you is the same heat that can harden you into something unbreakable. From this point on, you stop running. You stop apologizing for the fire. You walk into it, head high, and let the world see what the forge has made. Because that's where the unfair advantage truly begins. Not in comfort, not in perfection, but in the courage to say, I am not what happened to me, I am what I did with it. Welcome to the forge. Welcome to the place where pain becomes precision. The call to harness. You already know the forge. Now the question becomes, what will you do with what it made? Most people leave the fire and never pick up the blade it created. They cool, harden, and forget. They go back to small talk, to habits that fit smaller lives. They tell their stories as tragedies instead of testaments. You can't afford that. You've paid too much for wisdom to let it rust. To harness your unfair advantage, you have to start seeing your life as material. Not just memories, not just moments, but matter that can be shaped, directed, and deployed. Every event, every humiliation, every victory is raw energy waiting for purpose. The forge created fuel. Now you build the engine. 1. The moment you stop hiding. We hide because we were taught to fear judgment more than stagnation. We polish our image until no one can recognize the truth that could actually connect us. But strength that stays secret dies unused. There's a day, sometimes quiet, sometimes violent, when you finally decide that the mask costs more than exposure. That's the day you stop performing recovery and start practicing resurrection. Harnessing begins there, with radical ownership. Say the words you've avoided. Name the truth without trembling. Everything you hide owns you. Everything you face fuels you. 2. Turn memory into motion. The past is heavy because you're carrying it instead of using it. The instant you start applying it, the weight turns to weight training. Ask yourself 3 questions. What did I survive that still defines my decisions? What skill did that survival secretly give me? How can I use that skill today to serve or to win? The answers are blueprints. Every lesson that once felt like loss becomes a lever for forward motion. Every mistake becomes design intelligence. You are now building life with recycled brilliance. 3. Reclaiming hunger. Comfort breeds caution, pain breeds precision. When you have nothing to prove, you lose the fire that made you extraordinary. Harnessing is remembering the hunger that pain carved into you and choosing to feed it with purpose instead of fear. Hunger is not desperation, it's direction. It's the constant whisper that says, "There's more in me than they have seen." Use it. Let it wake you before the world does. Let it push you to master your craft so completely that luck starts calling you inevitable. Hunger is the battery that keeps resilience alive when applause fades. 4. The anatomy of harnessing. There are 5 deliberate moves that separate the harnessed from the haunted. Recognition. Admit what happened. Refusal burns fuel. Reinterpretation. Give pain a new meaning that serves you. Reconstruction. Build new systems on top of what pain taught you. Reinforcement. Surround yourself with people, routines, and beliefs that maintain your upgraded identity. Release. Stop auditioning for the old world. Walk as the forged version of yourself. This is your operating manual. You can revisit the forge anytime you forget what you're made of. 5. Power is not possession, it's flow. Real power isn't the trophy you hold, it's energy you channel. When you hoard it, it stagnates. When you flow it, through creation, through leadership, through service, it multiplies. Harnessing means turning self-mastery into momentum that benefits others. The scar you show becomes someone else's map out of darkness. That's how personal power becomes legacy. 6. The science of leverage. Think of life as physics. Every impact, every collision contains transferable force. The same pressure that once flattened you can propel you forward if you redirect it. Leverage is simply force with focus. You don't need more effort, you need alignment. Align your story with your strategy. Align your pain with your purpose. Align your lessons with your goals. When everything in you points one direction, even small actions produce exponential outcomes. That's why some people seem unstoppable. They're not stronger, they're streamlined. 7. The inner contract. To harness your unfair advantage, you must sign a silent agreement with yourself. It has 3 clauses. No more waste. Every failure becomes data. Every emotion becomes direction. No more waiting. You move before motivation. Motion creates it. No more pretending. You tell the truth even when it trembles. This contract has no witnesses and no expiration date. But once you sign it, life starts responding differently. People sense conviction. Opportunities gravitate toward clarity. Chaos begins to organize around intention. That's the physics of purpose in motion. 8. Micromission, the power ledger. Tonight, list the 5 hardest experiences of your life in one column. In the column beside them, write what each experience gave you that no classroom could. Call this your power ledger. Read it aloud every morning for 7 days, not as affirmation, but as evidence. Evidence rewires belief faster than any slogan ever could. 9. Closing reflections. Harnessing doesn't end with understanding. It begins with obedience to truth. Once you see that every wound was a workshop, you can't go back to seeing yourself as unlucky. You are not healing anymore. You are harvesting. You are collecting the wisdom that others ran from. You are converting it into currency, emotional, intellectual, financial, spiritual. Every scar has a yield if you learn how to process it. So from this moment on, the question isn't, how do I recover? It's, how do I reinvest the power pain gave me? Because nothing you've been through is wasted. Not a single failure, not a single heartbreak, not a single night you thought would break you. You own them now. You direct them. You harness them. 10. Transition to the journey ahead. When the forge cools, the craftsman tests the blade. That's where you are now, holding something sharp, strong, and alive in your hands, your story. You can hide it. You can hang it on a wall and call it art. Or you can use it to cut through fear, to carve out destiny, to defend what matters. The next chapter is where you learn how. Chapter 1. The Lie of the Clean Slate. The Illusion of Purity. You've been told all your life that success loves purity, that new beginnings require clean slates, flawless records, and fresh starts. You've been sold the myth that greatness begins after the past is erased. That's the lie that keeps most people small. Because if the world convinces you that your scars disqualify you, you'll spend your life apologetic about your evidence of experience. You'll waste years trying to start over when you should be building on top of. The truth is simpler and sharper. The most powerful people on this planet are not the ones who escaped the mess. They're the ones who mined it. The 3 illusions of perfection. Let's expose the architecture of the lie. There are 3 illusions that sustain the myth of the clean slate. The image illusion. If I look perfect, I'll be accepted. This is the root of imposter syndrome. You curate, you polish, you pretend. But perfection is isolation disguised as approval. It keeps you trapped in performance instead of power. The starting line illusion. If I just had their advantages, I could win. You compare beginnings instead of outcomes. You forget that advantage is not what you're given, it's what you build from what broke you. The forgiveness illusion. I must heal before I build. Healing is noble, but obsession with healing becomes avoidance. Some wounds close only when you start using what they taught you. Perfection is a prison built by people afraid of their own potential. You don't need a clean slate. You need a clear perspective. Case study: the $1 billion burn. There's a story the media never tells you fully. The founder who failed before he became folklore. Before Richard Branson built Virgin, he almost bankrupted himself in the student magazine business. Before Oprah became an empire, she was fired from her first news job for being too emotional. Before Steve Jobs returned to Apple, he was exiled by the very board he created. Each of them was publicly humiliated. Each of them was declared finished. But humiliation is the final exam of destiny. When you survive it, you stop needing approval to move forward. That's where true dominance begins. They didn't start with clean slates. They started with fire and used it to forge vision. Framework: the Deceiver Reframe Protocol. Here's how to dismantle the clean slate lie in real life. Follow the Reframe Protocol, a mental process that converts your past into usable advantage. Step: directive. Question. 1. Recognize. Name the events that shaped you. What happened that I still hide? 2. Reinterpret. Change the meaning of the pain. How did that serve me, train me, or toughen me? 3. Repurpose. Extract a strategy or skill. What strength or insight did I gain? 4. Reinforce. Anchor the lesson into identity. Who am I now because of that experience? Repeat this every time shame whispers that you need to erase your story. Repetition is what rewires reflexes. The evidence of experience. You think you want credibility, but credibility doesn't come from certificates. It comes from calluses. You gain it every time you make a decision that fails and still find the courage to try again with new information. That's what experience really is. Data paid for in discomfort. And data is the most powerful currency in existence. When you look at your life through that lens, nothing is wasted. Every heartbreak becomes consumer research. Every disappointment becomes product testing. Every failure becomes a field report. You've already been doing R&D on yourself. You just didn't know it. Subsection: How the perfect ones break. People who've never faced real resistance often collapse under first contact with reality. They expect a straight line, so when chaos hits, they think something's wrong. They treat pressure as punishment instead of process. But you already know the taste of pressure. You know what panic feels like at 3 a.m., what loss smells like, what failure sounds like in your head. That's not trauma anymore. That's tactical awareness. You've been through boot camp while others were in the classroom. So while they're memorizing theories of resilience, you're already fluent in it. That's your advantage. Field experience disguised as failure. The psychological flip. The human brain hates contradiction. If you tell it pain equals weakness, it will avoid pain. If you teach it pain equals power, it will pursue mastery. Harnessing your unfair advantage starts with flipping the equation inside your head. Pain not equal to punishment. Pain equals preparation. Once your brain accepts that, you stop running from discomfort and start collecting data from it. That's when growth becomes predictable instead of accidental. Micro story: The runner in the rain. A young athlete used to skip training whenever it rained. One day his coach said, "Every raindrop is someone quitting. Keep running and you'll win by default." He did. Years later, that same athlete dominated in a world championship held in a storm. The difference wasn't genetics. It was training in conditions others avoided. Every unfair condition is potential leverage, if you stay in motion. Action framework: The advantage inventory. To prove that you no longer need a clean slate, build your advantage inventory. It's your personal map of weaponized experiences. List the 3 hardest seasons of your life. Under each, write the exact lessons or instincts they produced. Identify how those lessons apply to your current goal. Keep that list visible. This is your evidence file against self-doubt. You can't hate the past once you've harvested its profit. Deceiver insight: The hidden economy of pain. Here's something almost no one teaches. Pain has market value. Every skill that commands high income or high influence was born in discomfort. Negotiation comes from surviving rejection. Leadership comes from navigating conflict. Discipline comes from surviving inconsistency. You're already holding equity in the most expensive asset class on earth: lived experience. All you have to do is stop treating it like liability. That's the real meaning of the unfair advantage. You've already paid tuition most people are too comfortable to pay. Your inner declaration. Say this slowly. I don't start from zero. I start from evidence. I start from endurance. I start from experience that cannot be faked. Every time you repeat this, you rewrite the story your subconscious tells about worth. Confidence doesn't come from affirmation. It comes from evidence repeated until it becomes memory. Transition to Chapter 2, The Alchemy of Pain. The lie of the clean slate dies the day you see that pain is not the opposite of power, it's the ingredient. Now that you know nothing was wasted, it's time to learn how to extract the lessons and melt them into strategy. In the next chapter, you'll learn the process that separates those who drown in pain from those who drink it like fuel. The Alchemy of Pain. Chapter 2. The Alchemy of Pain. Why pain is the most expensive teacher. You've paid tuition in tears, humiliation, and sleepless nights. Others pay in cash for courses. You paid in consequence. Pain is the original university, but most students drop out before graduation. They numb it, they rename it, they pray it away. But you're not here to escape the fire. You're here to extract the formula. Pain is raw energy. Alchemy is how you refine it. The 3 stages of alchemy pain. Real alchemy has always been misunderstood. Ancient alchemists weren't chasing gold, they were chasing transformation. They believed that if they could purify base metal, they could purify the human spirit. You're about to do the same. Stage 1. Acknowledgement. Name the fire. You cannot weaponize what you will not face. Denial keeps wounds open. Naming them closes the bleeding. Write it down plainly. I failed here. I was betrayed here. I lost here. You don't do this to relive the pain. You do it to contain it. When you name something, you take authority over it. Unspoken pain controls you. Spoken pain becomes data. Acknowledgement isn't weakness. It's the moment you stop pretending and start processing. You move from emotion to information. Stage 2, extraction. Mine the lessons. Every tragedy is a treasure map written in code. The key is to ask the right questions. What did this pain expose about my blind spots? What did it teach me about people, timing, systems, or myself? What could I have only learned this way? Each answer is a mineral vein of wisdom. Your job is to extract without self-pity. Example, the betrayed partner. She trusted the wrong people, lost everything. But from the wreckage, she learned 3 priceless lessons. How to read motive faster. How to audit agreements line by line. How to build without dependence. The tuition was brutal, but the ROI was freedom. That's extraction. Stage 3, application. Turn scar into strategy. Lessons unused rot into regret. Once you have the data, plug it into design. If pain taught you boundaries, install them in business. If loss taught you value, protect your time like capital. If rejection taught you focus, refine your audience and stop chasing everyone. Application is where healing becomes leverage. When you start applying pain, you begin forecasting outcomes others can't even sense. Your trauma becomes radar. Framework, the pain to power cycle. Phase, description, output. Exposure, event hits, chaos and emotion. Raw data. Examination, you dissect causes without judgment. Insight. Extraction, you identify transferable lessons. Knowledge. Execution, you apply the lesson to new action. Strategy. Elevation, confidence grows from results. Power. Run this cycle until it becomes reflex. Mastery is repetition, not revelation. The scar tissue principle. When skin heals, scar tissue is thicker than the original layer. Your psyche works the same way. Every healed wound increases your load-bearing capacity. You don't bounce back, you build forward. Resilience is scar tissue with memory. Stop hiding your scars. They're architectural proof that you're reinforced. Case study: the entrepreneur who failed forward. A young founder loses his company in public view. Debt, embarrassment, burnout. Instead of disappearing, he documents everything he did wrong. He studies his spreadsheets like autopsy reports. A year later, he launches again, this time with precise contracts, lean operations, and risk buffers. The result? Profit in 6 months, investors in 12. He didn't start over, he started smarter. Failure didn't end him, it educated him. Sub-framework, the pain budget. Treat pain like capital. You've already spent it, now collect the returns. Asset. You paid with, return you can demand. Betrayal. Trust and time. Discernment. Failure. Ego and money. Competence. Loss. Love and comfort. Clarity. Rejection. Hope and effort. Focus. Humiliation. Reputation. Humility plus hunger. Stop letting pain depreciate. Claim its dividends. The mindset upgrade, from victim to chemist. Victims ask, why me? Chemists ask, what can this make me? The difference is direction. Victimhood faces backward. Chemistry faces forward. Once you switch, your nervous system begins to see adversity as an assignment, not an accident. That's when confidence stops being fragile. You're not waiting for the world to be fair. You're learning to manipulate the unfairness into momentum. Microstory: The Blacksmith's Apprentice. An apprentice once asked his master, "Why do we hammer the metal after it cools?" The master replied, "Because strength isn't just heat, it's pressure remembered." Your life works the same way. The memory of pressure is what gives you precision. Don't despise repetition. Every blow is calibration. Action Framework: The Alchemy Journal. Set aside 10 minutes each night. Divide a page into 4 sections: event, emotion, extraction, execution. Write 1 sentence about what hurt today. Describe the feeling without censorship. List the lesson it carries. Decide 1 action that applies it tomorrow. Within a month, you'll have a personal manual of resilience, a live record of transformation in progress. Doccheever Insight: Emotional data equals strategic intelligence. Business leaders pay consultants to interpret market feedback. You have emotional feedback delivered daily. Every spike of frustration, jealousy, or fear is data about your unmastered territory. Study your emotions the way CEOs study quarterly reports. When you can read your own emotional analytics, no manipulation works on you again. That's self-governance. That's dominance disguised as calm. Power quote: The same fire that destroyed the old you is the fire that forges the new you. Print it. Memorize it. Make it a password in your mind. Because the next time life heats up, you'll remember this isn't punishment, it's refinement. Transition to Chapter 3. Failure as your secret PhD. You've learned how to transmute pain into wisdom. Next, you'll learn how to use failure itself as a research laboratory, how to convert loss into intellectual property and experience into unstoppable momentum. Chapter 3: Failure as Your Secret PhD begins now. Chapter 3. Failure as Your Secret PhD. The graduation you never attended. You have a degree most people don't even know exists. It's not printed on paper. It's written in late nights, empty bank accounts, broken plans, and the silence of people who stopped believing in you. You've earned your PhD in reality. Because while others studied theories of success, you studied what doesn't work, in real time with real consequences. And that makes you dangerous in the best possible way. Failure is the tuition for mastery. It's how the universe filters pretenders from performers. Those who never fail are those who never try hard enough to stretch their limits. They graduate early from ambition. But those who keep showing up, keep iterating, keep analyzing their own wreckage, they earn something deeper than validation. They earn competence. The myth of the opposite. Society treats failure and success as opposites. That's an error of perception. Failure is not the opposite of success, it's the raw material of it. Every empire you admire is built from the ruins of something that once collapsed. Edison made 1,000 failed light bulbs. Colonel Sanders had 1,009 rejections before one yes. Netflix was born because Blockbuster laughed at a late fee. Failure isn't the wall that stops you, it's the lab that trains you. It's not a verdict, it's a syllabus. Framework, the failure equation. Failure equals data plus direction plus durability. Data, the facts stripped of feelings. Every failure holds information about what doesn't work. Direction, each mistake narrows the path between you and mastery. Durability. Every rebound builds scar tissue that protects future versions of you. When you treat failure as feedback, life becomes a series of experiments instead of a sequence of tragedies. Case study. The CEO who fell from the sky. She was brilliant, young, charismatic, well-funded. Her startup raised millions. Then came the crash. Product recall, lawsuits, ridicule. Investors walked, friends disappeared. For months she vanished, ashamed. But one night she opened the old failure reports and began dissecting them like an engineer studying wreckage. She discovered two things. Every failure was caused by a missing system. Every missing system could be built from the lesson itself. 3 years later, she founded a new company, this time built around risk intelligence. It became one of the fastest-growing logistics platforms in Africa. The secret wasn't redemption, it was research. Failure gave her data no MBA could. That's how you convert humiliation into higher education. The scar tissue advantage. When a muscle tears and heals, the new fibers grow stronger. That's not metaphor, it's biology. The same principle applies to your mind. Every disappointment, every collapse, every public embarrassment, once healed, adds layers of mental armor. You're no longer guessing how strong you are. You've tested it. That's evidence-based confidence, the only kind that lasts. De-achiever insight. Failure immunity. There's a strange thing that happens when you failed enough times. You lose your fear of it. And when you lose the fear of failure, you become unstoppable. People who never fail are fragile. They avoid risk like it's poison. But you've tasted it. You've survived it. You know it's not fatal. That immunity allows you to take bold swings others wouldn't dare to attempt. That's how legends separate from the talented. They've built psychological calluses that make them immune to the small stings of life. You're not fearless. You're familiar with pain, and that makes you powerful. Subsection: the failure database. The biggest mistake people make is treating failure like trauma instead of documentation. You need a failure database, a living record of what didn't work, why it didn't work, and what it taught you. Field. Example entry. Event. Facebook ad campaign underperformed. Hypothesis. Headline was emotionally flat. Result. CTR 0.3%. Lesson. Emotions drive clicks, logic drives purchase. System fix. Add emotional hooks before feature lists. If you keep this kind of record, every failure becomes a future asset. You'll start recognizing patterns faster than your competitors can. You'll evolve so quickly it'll look like luck, but it won't be. Micro story. The boxer's 13th fight. He lost 12 times, bruised, mocked, and nearly blind in one eye. But he watched every loss on replay, studying every angle, every mistake. On the 13th fight, he didn't move faster, he moved smarter. He predicted every punch seconds before it landed. Commentators called it instinct. It wasn't instinct, it was experience, analyzed and archived. Failure had taught him timing. Pain had taught him patience, and the combination became dominance. Framework. The Failure Audit. De-Achiever Edition. Each quarter, conduct a failure audit. It's your personal board meeting with reality. Step. Action. Purpose. List. Write down every significant failure from the past 90 days. Context. Diagnose. Identify the system flaw or blind spot behind each. Insight. Recode. Define the skill that experience gave you. Asset. Deploy. Apply that skill to one new goal immediately. Implementation. If you perform this audit consistently, you'll stop making the same mistakes twice. That's how you build exponential wisdom from linear pain. The failure paradox. The more you fail, the less it hurts. And the less it hurts, the more risk you can take. And the more risk you take, the faster you learn. Eventually, your success rate skyrockets, not because luck changed, but because your learning loop accelerated. Failure shortens the distance between ignorance and mastery. It is the fastest teacher alive. Subsection. Public failure and private power. Public failure stings, but it also brands you as someone who dared. When you share your story strategically, people don't see shame, they see proof. Authenticity attracts allies. Vulnerability becomes credibility. Don't perform pain, present wisdom. Show your audience not your wounds, but your war reports. That's how leaders are born in the modern world, transparent enough to be trusted, tested enough to be respected. Action framework. Failure filters. Failure is not just feedback, it's filtration. It filters your future choices. Each failure installs an invisible rule that guides your next decision. Here are 5 universal filters forged by failure. Energy filter. If it drains your spirit, it doesn't deserve your effort. Integrity filter. If you have to hide it, don't do it. Partnership filter. If values misalign, no profit justifies it. Time filter. If it doesn't serve your legacy, decline it. Risk filter. If the downside costs identity, walk away. These filters make you impossible to manipulate. They are the operating system of the experienced. De-Achiever mission. The Failure Manifesto. Write your failure manifesto, a declaration that defines your relationship with defeat. Include these 5 statements and add your own. I don't hide my failures, I harvest them. Every mistake I survived is an investment in precision. I will fail forward, faster and with focus. My story will be my strategy. Failure doesn't subtract value, it reveals it. Read this before every major decision. It reminds you that losing once doesn't make you a loser. Quitting analysis does. Power quote. The more you fail, the less you fear failing. And the less you fear failing, the more you win. Confidence is not built by success, it's built by survival. Every time you stand again, you rewrite your identity at the molecular level. You are not avoiding pain anymore. You are leveraging it. Transition to Chapter 4, Trauma as Transformation. By now, you've learned to see pain as material and failure as education. But there's a deeper layer, the kind that doesn't just bruise your ego, but rewires your soul. Next, we enter the territory most people fear to face, trauma as transformation. That's where you learn to convert not just your setbacks, but your scars into the deepest form of strength the human spirit can know. Chapter 4. Trauma as Transformation. The pain that trains you. There are wounds that sting, and then there are wounds that shape you. The difference between the two is what you decide to do with them. Trauma is not just an emotional event. It's an upgrade protocol hidden inside pain. It changes how you see, how you assess risk, how you respond to chaos. But most people never notice this transformation because they're busy fighting the memory instead of decoding the message. What broke you once has already begun to build you. You just haven't called it that yet. The question is no longer, what happened to me? The question now is, what did this give me? The myth of damage. Society romanticizes resilience, but demonizes trauma. It applauds those who move on and pities those who admit they were affected. That's hypocrisy. You cannot develop deep strength without deep struggle. The weight that almost crushed you is the same force that taught you how to lift. You are not damaged. You are data-rich. Trauma doesn't make you broken. It makes you detailed. You notice tone shifts others miss. You sense betrayal before it speaks. You analyze people like case studies because survival made you observant. You are not fragile. You are finely tuned. Framework, the post-traumatic growth advantage. Science now confirms what survivors have always known. Trauma can amplify human capability. Researchers call it post-traumatic growth. It's the paradox where pain produces personal evolution. Adaptation, description, strategic benefit, hypervigilance, heightened awareness after danger, early detection of threats and opportunities, adaptation, innovation, force to pivot under stress, rapid problem-solving under pressure, empathy, influence, deeper emotional intelligence, better leadership and communication, mortality awareness, focus, understanding how short life is, ruthless clarity on what matters. You've been rewired for greatness. You just need to start using the new operating system. Case study, the soldier who became a healer. He returned from combat with nightmares, panic attacks, and guilt that silence couldn't cure. Every loud sound felt like an explosion, every crowd like a battlefield. But one night he realized something extraordinary. His sensitivity wasn't weakness, it was awareness. He could feel shifts in energy, sense distress before others noticed it. So he turned it into service. He began teaching breath control to other veterans, helping them regulate the same nervous system that betrayed him. His trauma became his curriculum. Today, he runs a global wellness initiative for veterans, using his symptoms as instruments. He didn't recover from trauma, he redeployed it. That's transformation. The anatomy of transformation. Transformation is not mystical, it's mechanical. It follows a sequence you can apply consciously. 1. Integration. Stop segregating your story. You can't build a masterpiece while hiding half the canvas. Every part of your past belongs in your present blueprint. When you integrate your trauma, you stop living in compartments. You become one whole, coherent force. Integration isn't forgiveness, it's unification. It's when you decide, this happened, and I'm still here, therefore, It's part of my power. 2. Recontextualization. Rewrite the meaning. Most people carry trauma like a verdict. You will carry it like a victory. Ask, what strength did surviving this unlock in me? What does this story prove about my capacity? How can this experience give others courage? Meaning is what separates a scar from an open wound. Once you assign empowering meaning to your trauma, it stops leaking energy and starts generating it. 3. Utilization. Deploy the gift. Every trauma carries a tool. You owe it to your own pain to put that tool to use. The betrayed become brilliant judges of character. The abandoned become anchors for others. The abused become guardians of justice. Your trauma is a training manual that life wrote in blood. Don't let it sit unread. Achiever insight. The hidden gift inside chaos. Every trauma gives you one of two gifts, either a sensitivity to feel more deeply, or a skill to act more decisively. Sensitivity is not softness, it's precision. You notice tension before it explodes, emotion before it's spoken. That's executive empathy, a leadership advantage. Skill, on the other hand, is the hard upgrade. When you've been through instability, you build structure. When you've been through betrayal, you build discernment. When you've been through fear, you build faith as a system. The gift is always there, but only the conscious collect it. Microstory. The girl with the fire hands. As a child, she lost her parents in a fire. For years, she hated the heat, couldn't stand candles or kitchens. One day, she began painting, red, orange, gold, only the colors of flame. Her art sold worldwide. When people asked why she only painted fire, she said, "Because I learned that flames don't just destroy, they define." That's what transformation looks like when it becomes art. Framework. The trauma-to-tool process. Here's how to turn your deepest pain into the sharpest instrument of your power. Step. Directive. Example. 1. Identify the event. Name the trauma without emotion. I was betrayed by a business partner. 2. Extract the strength. What quality did survival require? Discernment. Documentation. 3. Translate to skill. How can that quality serve you now? Better contract design and negotiation. 4. Apply in action. Implement it today. Hire slower, verify faster. 5. Share the lesson. Teach it publicly or privately. Mentor others on business due diligence. The moment you share your trauma's lesson, you turn private pain into public power. Subsection. Emotional intelligence born from suffering. You can't fake depth. People who've known real pain carry a vibration of truth that can't be imitated. That's why the most magnetic leaders are often the most scarred. They speak from evidence. Their empathy isn't rehearsed, it's memoried. Trauma humbles you just enough to make you relatable and sharpens you just enough to make you formidable. It gives you a voice that cuts through noise because it's backed by memory, not theory. Action Framework, the Trauma Integration Journal. To actively transform your trauma, create a 3-column journal. Event, gift, application. In the first column, write the event without emotion. In the second, identify the gift that came from it, a trait, skill, or awareness. In the third, plan one way to apply that gift in your business, relationships, or craft. Review this weekly. It turns what once paralyzed you into a productivity system. Achiever mission. From surviving to serving. You didn't endure pain just to stay silent. Your survival is someone else's survival guide. Pick one story you've been afraid to tell. Strip it of drama. Tell it as a case study. Teach the lesson, not the lament. Every time you do this, you reduce shame's power and multiply purpose. That's how trauma becomes influence. The core truth. Trauma never truly leaves you. It becomes a permanent layer of intelligence inside your nervous system. The goal isn't to erase it. The goal is to educate it. When you stop running from the memory and start running on the wisdom, you become something the world can't manipulate. A human being who's met fire and learned to wield it. You're no longer a survivor. You're a strategist. You don't just heal, you harvest. You don't just recover, you reign. Power quote. The wound is not where you end. It's where you begin again, stronger, wiser, and infinitely more precise. Transition to Chapter 5, the power of the underdog narrative. You've now mastered the internal forge, turning trauma into transformation. Next, we move into external expression, how to shape your story into a weapon of influence. Because once you know your pain made you powerful, the next move is learning how to tell that truth so the world listens, not in pity, but in awe. Prepare for Chapter 5, the power of the underdog narrative.
Chapter 5, the power of the underdog narrative. The myth of the giant. The world loves to glorify giants, the rich, the connected, the unshakable. They fill screens and headlines. They dominate attention. But what the world forgets is that every giant once started as something small, underestimated, and uninvited. We are wired to root for the underdog because deep down we see ourselves in them. The underdog represents possibility, the proof that the game can still be beaten, that destiny isn't decided by resources but by relentlessness. That's why when you rise from the bottom, people don't just watch, they believe. The psychology of the underdog. Humans are drawn to underdog stories for one reason: hope. When you tell your story right, you don't just inspire, you activate something primal in people. There are 3 psychological pillars that make the underdog narrative unstoppable. Underestimation to surprise advantage. When they doubt you, they drop their guard. You move in silence and strike with preparation. Adversity to authenticity advantage. Struggle makes you believable. No one trusts perfection. They trust pain survived. Relatability to connection advantage. People support who reflects their own battles. Your story becomes their mirror. That's the science behind why your scars will take you further than your resume ever could. The anatomy of an underdog story. Every powerful underdog story follows the same 4-stage pattern. Whether it's in life, leadership, or business, the formula never changes. Phase, description, your task. 1. The struggle. The dark valley, failure, rejection, obscurity. Own it publicly. Don't sanitize it. 2. The turning point. The decision that shifts the story. Identify your defining never again moment. 3. The transformation. The skill, mindset, or breakthrough forged in fire. Translate pain into performance. 4. The lesson. The message you share with others. Frame it as service, not self-pity. When you share your journey in this structure, people stop seeing you as lucky. They see you as legitimate. Microstory. The mechanic who built an empire. He started fixing cars under a mango tree with no garage, no capital, no pedigree, just hands that refused to stay idle. When customers came, he didn't sell repairs, he sold trust. Years later, that roadside workshop became an automotive company employing hundreds. His brand slogan? Built from the ground, for the ground. That's the power of the underdog narrative. Authenticity that scales. Framework, the underdog strategy pyramid. To convert your disadvantage into dominance, build on this foundation. Tier, concept, application. 1. Origin. Know your story of struggle. Journal your real beginnings, unfiltered. 2. Resilience. Identify the traits it built. List what hardship taught you. 3. Proof. Demonstrate results earned from that pain. 4. Contribution. Make it about others. Teach, mentor, or solve what once hurt you. The key is the 4th tier. When your victory becomes valuable to others, your story stops being self-promotion and becomes legacy. The brand-level underdog. Every brand that ever disrupted a giant used the same formula you're learning now. They didn't compete on scale, they competed on story. Nike didn't start as a billion-dollar empire. It was 2 men selling shoes from a car trunk, standing against Goliaths like Adidas. Their message? Anyone can run. Apple was born in a garage, preaching rebellion against big gray corporate machines. That story, Think Different, turned buyers into believers. Dangote began with small-scale trading in Nigeria. Today, it's a symbol of African self-determination, a living narrative that you can build from soil to skyline. People buy underdog stories because they carry the blueprint of transformation. They remind the world that giants bleed too. Subsection: The Law of Narrative Leverage. Every underdog has 2 choices: to fight in silence or to frame their story before the world does. If you don't tell your story, someone else will, and they'll get the moral wrong. Storytelling is not marketing, it's meaning control. It's how you guide perception and plant emotional anchors in the minds of your audience. Here's the truth. You're already a story. The only question is whether you're the author or the anecdote. Case study: the startup that refused to compete. In 2019, a small skincare brand in Kenya faced impossible odds: global competition, low funding, and supply chain chaos. Instead of pretending to be luxury, they embraced their grit. They built their brand around honesty and struggle. Their slogan read, "Made in the heat, tested by hustle." Their videos showed real women mixing ingredients by hand, not models in marble bathrooms. That honesty caught fire, literally, across social media. Today, that brand exports to 5 continents. They didn't win by acting big. They won by being believable. The Achiever Framework, the underdog influence model. To turn your story into influence, apply this simple model. Step: action. Effect: 1. Declare the struggle. Reveal the adversity you faced. Builds empathy. 2. Define the moment. Share the decision that changed everything. Create suspense. 3. Display the growth. Show what the fire forged in you. Builds authority. 4. Deliver the lesson. Extract wisdom others can apply. Builds loyalty. Use this model in your speeches, videos, and brand messaging. It's not vulnerability, it's strategy wrapped in truth. Micro story. The musician no one booked. He sang in empty bars for years. No record deal, no followers, no hope. One day he recorded a single on his phone, uploaded it, and captioned, "This is for everyone they ignored." It went viral, not because of perfection, because of positioning. His pain became a rallying cry. His weakness became marketing. That's how authenticity beats algorithm. Action framework. Craft your underdog story. Write your 3 biggest obstacles, the things that almost ended you. Mark the turning points, the moments you decided never again. Extract 3 lessons, skills, mindsets, or insights. Package it as a message that could help others in your field. Record it, 2-minute voice note, reel, or journal entry. Practice telling it until it flows from memory, not motive. That's how truth finds tone. De-achiever insight, the magnetism of realness. In an age of filters and performance, authenticity is rebellion, and rebellion is profitable. People crave truth. They don't need you to be perfect. They need you to be proof. Every underdog who rises creates a gravitational pull that draws others upward. When you live your truth loudly, you give silent people permission to speak. That's influence at its purest form. Power quote. The world doesn't cheer for perfection. It cheers for proof that it can rise too. Never forget, when you win, it's not just your victory. It's everyone's evidence that hope still works.
Chapter 6. Building an Identity Rooted in Resilience. The collapse of the false self. Every breakdown begins when identity and reality stop matching. You built an image to survive, a mask polished by necessity. It served you once, but now it's too small for who you've become. You've been through enough to know this truth. If your sense of self depends on what can be taken from you, you'll spend your life afraid of loss. Real identity is not reputation. It's not achievement. It's evidence. Evidence that you have been tested and you're still here. Evidence that no failure, no betrayal, no season of darkness could erase your hunger to rise again. That's the foundation of resilience. Identity built on proof, not performance. Framework. The 3 pillars of resilient identity. Pillar. Definition. Your practice. 1. I survived. Proof of endurance. Recall every moment you thought you'd break and didn't. 2. I adapt. Proof of evolution. Acknowledge every time you reinvented yourself. 3. I overcome. Proof of motion. Keep moving even when certainty disappears. Each pillar reinforces the others. Survival without adaptation is stagnation. Adaptation without motion is delay. Motion without endurance is burnout. Together, they form your unshakable core, the resilience triad. The fallacy of achievement-based identity. You live in a culture obsessed with measurement. Followers, net worth, degrees, titles. But metrics can be manipulated. Resilience can't. When your identity depends on external validation, one bad quarter, one betrayal, or one scandal can shatter your self-worth. That's why powerful people still crumble. Their success was scaffolding, not structure. Your new identity must be internalized resilience, a system so rooted in reality that no loss subtracts from who you are. Subsection: the evidence of endurance. Confidence is not positive thinking, it's memory. The memory of what you've already survived. Every time you faced uncertainty and still acted, you built neural evidence of courage. Every time you failed and recalibrated, you programmed adaptation into your DNA. You are walking proof that storms don't last, but students of storms do. Stop telling the story of pain. Start telling the story of persistence. Microstory: the artist who refused to erase. A young artist spent months repainting the same canvas, covering every brushstroke in white. On the 11th attempt, she stopped. She left every brushstroke visible: the drips, the smudges, the flaws. That painting sold for more than all her perfect works combined. When asked why, she said, "Because truth sells better than polish." Your life is that canvas. Stop erasing the parts that make it valuable. Framework: the identity construction blueprint. Identity is not found, it's built, layer by layer, through decisions that prove your values. Layer: description. Practice. Foundation: evidence. Build on proof of survival, not dreams. Write your survival ledger, everything you've overcome. Structure: values. What principles stayed constant through chaos? Define your top 5 non-negotiables. Walls: discipline. Actions that reinforce belief. Create daily rituals that express your identity. Roof: boundaries. Protect the structure. Say no to what doesn't align with who you're becoming. When you live this way, identity becomes architecture, not advertising. D'Achiever insight: the physics of self-belief. Belief is not emotion, it's repetition. You become what you rehearse. Every time you show up tired but consistent, your brain records, "I'm someone who endures." Every time you speak truth instead of seeking approval, it records, "I'm someone who leads." Every time you build discipline when no one is watching, it records, "I'm someone who can be trusted." Identity is a database built from evidence. That's why imposter syndrome dies the moment you collect proof. Microstory: the marathon in the mirror. A man trained for a marathon but failed halfway. He was humiliated, exhausted, and ready to quit. Instead, he ran the remaining distance the next morning, alone, without a medal, without applause. That's the day he became a runner. Not the day of the race, but the day after defeat. Because identity is proven in private, long before it's applauded in public. Framework: the 21-day identity reprogram. Rewire your self-perception using evidence loops. Short actions that confirm a new truth daily. Write your identity statement. I am someone who, 10 versions. Choose one behavior per day that aligns with that statement. Track results nightly. Repeat for 21 days. Example: I am someone who keeps promises. Wake up early. Deliver one task. Celebrate completion. Identity doesn't change from affirmations. It changes from alignment. Subsection: the confidence of the tested. There's a wordless calm that surrounds people who've been through enough to stop performing. They no longer need to prove. They simply demonstrate. That's the kind of confidence money can't buy. The confidence that comes from proof of endurance. You've been hit before. You've fallen before. You've rebuilt before. That's not trauma. That's your track record. Own it. Speak from it. Lead with it. That's D'Achiever confidence. Not loud, but lethal. D'Achiever mission: build your identity manifesto. Write your identity manifesto, a declaration of who you've become through what you've survived. Structure it like this. I am someone who, trait. I know this because, proof. I will protect it by, habit. I will express it by, action. Example. I am someone who adapts under pressure. I know this because I've thrived in crisis. I will protect it by staying disciplined. I will express it by mentoring others who panic in chaos. Read it daily until it stops sounding like hope and starts sounding like fact. D'Achiever Insight, the unbreakable equation. Identity built on resilience equals freedom from fear. When you root who you are in what you've endured, the world loses leverage over you. Rejection no longer feels fatal. Change no longer feels chaotic. Failure no longer feels final. You stop needing validation because you already have verification. That's freedom. That's power. That's the unfair advantage of the resilient. Power quote. Who you are is not what you declare in comfort. It's what you prove under pressure. Transition to Chapter 7, From Survival to Domination. You've now built the inner foundation, resilience as identity, truth as armor, endurance as evidence. But the next evolution of power is not stability, it's expansion. Chapter 7 is where you stop surviving and start dominating. You'll learn how to transform the calm of resilience into the aggression of ambition. Not defensive survival, but offensive growth.
Chapter 7. From Survival to Domination. The shift that changes everything. Survival made you strong. Domination makes you sovereign. Survival taught you how to breathe underwater. Domination teaches you how to command the current. When you were in survival, everything felt like defense, conserving energy, avoiding risk, reacting to pressure. But domination is offense. It's the art of striking first, not in violence, but in vision. Survival says, I hope I don't lose. Domination says, I've already won. I just need the world to see it. That is the difference between those who endure and those who evolve. The survival trap. Survival mode is addictive. It gives you small wins that look like progress. You're busy, productive, moving, but never advancing. It's the illusion of safety that keeps most people stagnant. You say you're hustling, but secretly, you're just maintaining. You're not fighting for expansion. You're fighting for existence. And here's the truth no one tells you. The human body cannot thrive in a perpetual state of crisis. When your nervous system stays in fight or flight for too long, it rewires your brain to prefer panic over peace. So even when opportunity arrives, you unconsciously sabotage it. You start missing chances because chaos feels more familiar than calm. Survival teaches you how to make it through the night. Domination teaches you how to design the day. Framework. The survival to domination model. Phase. Description. Mental rewire. Awareness. Recognize when you're operating from fear. Ask, am I reacting or creating? Redirection. Replace defensive thoughts with offensive clarity. Ask, what do I want to build, not just avoid? Assertion. Take visible, measurable action toward expansion. Ask, how can I expand my reach today? Authority. Turn consistent wins into systems and influence. Ask, how do I make this repeatable? Domination is not a mystery. It's a system that begins in the mind and ends in the market. The inner mechanics of domination. Domination begins internally. It's a mental shift from scarcity to strategy, from fear of loss to fascination with growth. You can't dominate the external world while doubting your internal worth. Vision. Clear enough to define what victory looks like. Discipline. Relentless enough to keep showing up after applause fades. Faith, unreasonable enough to act before results. When these three align, domination becomes your natural rhythm. You stop asking, what if it fails, and start asking, how fast can it scale? Case study: the street vendor who became a distribution king. He started with a wheelbarrow of bottled water on a dusty road in Lagos, Nigeria. For years, he survived, sweating for pennies, dodging insults, barely feeding himself. Then one day he asked a different question. If I can sell water, why can't I own the wells? That one thought turned survival into domination. He saved every naira, built one small depot, then 5, then 50. Today his company supplies entire regions. Nothing around him changed. His location, his language, his limitations. Only his level of thinking. Domination is not a gift. It's a decision. Subsection: domination as alignment, not aggression. Many misunderstand domination. They equate it with arrogance, ruthlessness, ego. But true domination isn't about conquest. It's about command. You stop competing and start curating. You stop chasing opportunity and start creating environments where opportunity chases you. Domination is calm. It's deliberate. It's power under discipline. You've seen loud people who crumble when the storm hits. They were performers, not dominators. True dominators are composed architects of chaos. De-achiever insight: the economics of power. Power follows order, not noise. Chaos repels wealth. Structure attracts it. When you install systems around your strength, routines, automations, loyal teams, you create an economy around your excellence. Domination isn't about working harder, it's about working higher. You rise above the noise of competition by building architecture that scales itself. The world doesn't reward exhaustion. It rewards efficiency. Framework: the domination quadrant. Quadrant: focus. Example: 1. Mindset: command over inner world. Morning priming rituals, clarity journaling. 2. Mechanics: systematic execution. SOPs, automation, delegation. 3. Market: external positioning. Brand narrative, strategic alliances. 4. Multiplication: legacy and leverage. Mentorship, investment, media. All 5 feed each other. Mindset drives mechanics. Mechanics impact the market. The market creates money. Money amplifies meaning. Meaning renews mindset. And the loop restarts stronger. This is the domination cycle. Once it's running, nothing external can disrupt your trajectory for long. Subsection: emotional recalibration. Peace as proof. Many confuse peace with passivity, but peace is the highest evidence of power. When you reach the point where chaos no longer shakes your strategy, you've graduated into domination. The loud fight is over, the silent construction begins. Domination is when stillness becomes your strength. Action framework: the 72-hour offense plan. Choose one goal you've been avoiding out of fear. Write down the risk you've been protecting yourself from. Design an offensive move. Send the proposal. Launch the project. Make the investment. Execute within 72 hours. Document the outcome. Every result, win or lose, expands your courage. Motion is the medicine for stagnation. Every bold act becomes a neural anchor for domination thinking. De-achiever mission: declare your domain. I am done defending my position. I am building territory. I do not fear loss. I fear stagnation. From this moment, my survival story becomes my strategy for domination. Sign it, date it. Read it daily until your subconscious believes it more than your doubts. Power quote: you can't conquer what you're still defending yourself from. Domination is not about being better than others. It's about being bigger than your old self. You stop explaining your greatness you start expressing it through execution. That's when the world stops competing and starts copying. Transition to Chapter 8, Your Unfair Advantage System. You've conquered survival, mastered expansion, and built the mental architecture of power. Now it's time to install the engine that keeps it running, the process that turns every lesson, pain, and breakthrough into replicable strategy. In Chapter 8, you'll construct your unfair advantage system, the 5-step blueprint for building perpetual growth from everything life throws your way.
Chapter 8. Your Unfair Advantage System. The fire needs a furnace. You've been through the forge. You've turned pain into purpose, failure into fuel, and trauma into transformation. But power without process eventually burns itself out. The greatest mistake of the newly awakened is believing that intensity is enough. It isn't. Without a system, your fire will flicker every time emotion fades. Systems are what separate seasons from empires. They capture the energy of breakthrough and convert it into repeatable results. A lion that hunts only when hungry will starve in a drought, but the lion that builds rhythm, routes, habits, and rituals dominates every season. That's what this chapter gives you, the blueprint to make your fire function. Why every champion needs a system. Success loves structure. Talent without it burns out. Vision without it stays fantasy. You've met brilliant people who never built anything lasting. They had insight, but no infrastructure. They lived in inspiration instead of execution. Your system is the bridge between who you are and what you produce. It keeps emotion obedient to mission. It automates power. The law of replicable power. In nature, everything that lasts operates by rhythm. The tides rise and fall on schedule. The heart beats without reminder. The seasons rotate without permission. You must run your ambition the same way, through principles, not moods. When greatness depends on motivation, it becomes inconsistent. When greatness depends on method, it becomes inevitable. The architecture of advantage. Every empire, every movement, every leader that lasts is built on one equation. Clarity times consistency times calibration equals compound power. Clarity gives direction. Consistency provides momentum. Calibration ensures evolution. Most people chase motivation. Dominators design mechanics. The next few sections give you those mechanics, the 5 gears of a self-reinforcing growth engine. Prelude to the framework. By now, you've gathered raw material: pain, lessons, endurance, story, resilience. Now you'll feed all of that into a single loop, a closed circuit that constantly recycles adversity into advancement. This is the unfair advantage system. It is both personal philosophy and business methodology. You'll use it to govern your mind, your craft, your team, your money, and your mission. The 5 gears are simple but surgical. Recognize, reframe, repurpose, rebuild, and repeat. Each gear multiplies the power of the previous one. Together, they form a perpetual engine of growth. Story prelude. The architect in the ashes. Before we dive into the gears, remember this story. A city once burned to the ground. When the flames died, one architect stood among the ruins, sketching. People asked, "Why plan when everything's gone?" He said, "Because now I can see where the foundations truly are." 3 years later, he rebuilt the city, stronger, smarter, fireproof. The ashes became blueprints. That's what this system does for you. It turns aftermath into architecture. Framework preview. Gear, focus, outcome. Recognize. Awareness of what shaped you. Ownership. Reframe. Changing meaning of pain. Liberation. Repurpose. Directing lessons toward creation. Productivity. Rebuild. Constructing systems around wisdom. Scalability. Repeat. Running the loop again with each challenge. Compound mastery. You'll learn to move through these gears automatically until resilience becomes reflex. The 5 gears of the unfair advantage system. 1. Recognize. Awareness is ownership. You cannot control what you refuse to acknowledge. Recognition is the first gate of transformation. This is where you study the battlefield of your past, not with shame, but with strategy. You trace every scar, every failure, every detour, and say, "This is my data." Recognition breaks denial. Denial drains destiny. When you name what shaped you, you reclaim authorship of your narrative. In business, this is called auditing. You can't scale what you haven't measured. You can't fix what you haven't faced. Action cue. List the 5 hardest experiences you've lived through. Beside each, write, "What did this teach me?" That list is not therapy. It's a power map. 2. Reframe. Change the meaning. Change the memory. Reframing is the mental alchemy that turns pain into precision. Pain carries energy. Meaning directs it. When you rewrite the interpretation, you rewrite the impact. You stop seeing experiences as curses and start seeing them as curriculum. Reframing requires language discipline. You stop saying, "This destroyed me." You start saying, "This defined me." In business terms, this is strategic rebranding. Brands fail when they lose control of perception. Lives fail for the same reason. When you reframe your story, you reposition your value. You become a brand that sells truth, not tragedy. Micro example. A founder once said, "We failed because no one wanted our first product." After reframing, we discovered what people truly need. Same event, different energy. The second version raised funding. 3. Repurpose. Direct pain toward production. Repurposing is where reflection becomes revenue. Everything you've endured gave you intellectual property, unique perspectives, instincts, and systems that others haven't earned. When you package those insights, they become assets. A leadership style forged from chaos, a product born from frustration, a method created from failure. Pain becomes productivity when you stop asking, "Why me?" and start asking, "Who else could benefit from what I've learned?" Business lens. Airbnb was born because 2 broke roommates couldn't pay rent. They repurposed their struggle for shelter into a global platform. That's repurposing at scale. Action cue. Choose one painful lesson you've mastered. List 3 ways it could serve others, as a service, product, or philosophy. That's your first prototype. 4. Rebuild. Systemize the strength. Once you've mined your lessons, you must install them into structure. Rebuilding is the shift from reaction to design. Every insight must become a system. Systems protect you from repeating the same mistakes. Example: you once lost money because you trusted too easily. Then build a vetting checklist before every partnership. You once burned out. Then build non-negotiable rest and delegation routines. That's rebuilding, transforming memory into mechanism. In organizations, this is called process design. It's why empires outlive emotions. Systems don't sleep. Framework: the 3 R's of rebuilding. R. Description. Example: reduce. Eliminate friction and excess. Simplify your workload. Refine. Optimize what works. Document high-yield habits. Reinforce. Automate consistency. Schedule check-ins, audits, reminders. The rebuilt life runs on autopilot excellence. 5. Repeat. Mastery through motion. Repetition is the final and eternal gear. You don't graduate from growth, you loop it. Each new challenge becomes raw material for the next cycle. Each setback enters the system and exits as strategy. This is how you become anti-fragile, not immune to chaos, but improved by it. In business, the same principle powers innovation cycles. Apple doesn't release perfection, it releases versions. Every failure feeds the next update. You are the same. Your version history is your evolution history. Action cue. At the end of each quarter, run a personal version update. What failed? What improved? What's next to automate or amplify? Repetition converts temporary resilience into permanent rhythm. The loop in motion. The moment you finish the fifth gear, the first begins again. Recognition follows every result. Reframing sharpens new lessons. Repurposing extracts new value. Rebuilding expands the system. Repetition restarts the engine stronger than before.
That's how you turned a single breakthrough into a legacy of victories. The application. From self-mastery to empire building. The 5 gears only matter when they run under pressure. Now you'll learn to apply them to 2 parallel worlds, your inner operating system and your outer empire. 1. Personal application. Becoming a system. You are no longer just a person, you are an evolving process. Every morning, the question isn't how do I feel, it's which gear am I operating in today. Recognize your emotional data before the world reacts to it. Reframe setbacks before they set in. Repurpose your pain into productivity the same day it hits. Rebuild habits as soon as cracks appear. Repeat until discipline becomes default. That is how confidence becomes clockwork. No more random motivation, only engineered momentum. Your new morning mantra: my emotions are inputs, my systems are sacred, my outcomes are inevitable. 2. Business application. Building systems that think. A resilient mind births resilient companies. The same 5 gears that shape identity can also structure enterprise. Gear. Business translation. Result. Recognize. Audit your data, audience, and weaknesses. Awareness of truth. Reframe. Redefine problems as design prompts. Innovation. Repurpose. Turn losses into products or services. Diversification. Rebuild. Create repeatable systems around wins. Scalability. Repeat. Reinvest profits into evolution. Longevity. This is how a hustle becomes a hierarchy. Your personal growth loop becomes your company's growth engine. Case study. The creator who became a conglomerate. She started as a YouTuber, speaking about heartbreak and healing. Her authenticity attracted millions, but burnout followed. Instead of quitting, she installed the unfair advantage system instinctively. She recognized her emotional cycles and outsourced editing during low-energy weeks. She reframed her struggle stories into educational mini-courses. She repurposed content into journals and workshops. She rebuilt a business team with SOPs for production and sales. She repeated the loop quarterly, each time doubling output. 5 years later, she owns a publishing company, a wellness brand, and licensing deals. Her vulnerability became vertical integration. That's the system in motion. Personal pain turned into corporate architecture. Subsection. The advantage mindset. Your unfair advantage isn't what you have, it's how you process what happens. The moment something hits your life, you run it through the 5 gears automatically. Instead of losing time to overthinking, you gain leverage through pattern recognition. It's not luck,
It's logic repeated until it looks like destiny. 3. The advantage audit. Practical exercise. Perform this once every 90 days to stay calibrated. Step, question, purpose. Recognize. What repeated challenges am I facing? Spot patterns. Reframe. What new meaning can I assign to them? Shift perception. Repurpose. What strengths emerge from these trials? Find assets. Rebuild. What process can I design to prevent recurrence? Install improvement. Repeat. How will I measure this loop's progress? Create accountability. Document your answers. Each cycle becomes a data archive of growth, your living autobiography of mastery. The Achiever Insight. Scaling the invisible. Domination without documentation dies. Write as you rise. Every insight you capture now becomes intellectual property later. Ebooks, courses, playbooks, systems. That's how you build an empire that can run without you. Micro story. The Farmer and the Furnace. A farmer once built a furnace to melt scrap metal. The first day it produced sparks, not strength. The second day the fire burned out early. The third day he adjusted the airflow and found the perfect balance. Flame steady, heat controlled. From then on he produced tools every day. When asked his secret, he said, "I stopped chasing flames and started mastering fire." That's what this system gives you, mastery of fire. Emotion no longer drives you, structure does. Framework. The 90-day advantage cycle. To operationalize your growth both personally and professionally, phase, focus, actions. Weeks 1 through 3. Recognize. Audit life and business data. Journals, KPI reviews, feedback loops. Weeks 4 through 6. Reframe. Redefine narratives and market approach. Team meetings, vision recalibration. Weeks 7 through 9. Repurpose. Create products or habits from insights. Launch initiatives, build offers. Weeks 10 through 12. Rebuild and repeat. Systemize and prepare for next cycle. Document SOPs, schedule next review. The 90-day rhythm keeps your empire agile. Each cycle compounds learning and tightens execution. The Achiever Mission. Build your system map. Draw 5 circles labeled Recognize, Reframe, Repurpose, Rebuild, Repeat. In each, list current life or business actions that fit the gear. Identify missing links. Create one improvement plan per gear. Revisit monthly to track progress. The core truth. Power without a process burns out. Process without passion dries out. But power with process ignites permanent advantage. Your unfair advantage system is not a theory. It's the discipline of turning experience into equity forever. Within a year, you'll notice the loop running subconsciously. That's when you know the system has become you. Everything you survived becomes currency. Everything you're learning becomes leverage. Everything you repeat becomes legacy. Power quote. When your system is stronger than your circumstances, your victory becomes predictable. Transition to Chapter 9, Real-World Case Files. You now possess the system that multiplies every strength and monetizes every lesson. In the next chapter, we'll enter the real-world case files, living examples of this system at work across leaders, creators, and businesses who turned impossible beginnings into inevitable impact. Get ready to see the system in action, not in theory, but in proof.
Chapter 9. Real-World Case Files. Theory becomes flesh. Every idea is fragile until it meets friction. The unfair advantage system was never meant to live only in journals or speeches. It was built to walk through people, brands, and movements that refuse to stay theoretical. In this chapter, the system breathes. You'll see it at work in founders, creators, and organizations that turn their stories into architecture. Each case began in fire, each ended in design. You'll recognize yourself in their ashes and your potential in their blueprints. Case File 1, The Phoenix Founder. Background, Rise from Rubble. A young Nigerian woman named Amina built her first business with blind hope and borrowed capital. It failed within a year. Suppliers defaulted, partners disappeared. The shame was public and merciless. For months, she hid until she stumbled on one line that would change everything. Pain is data waiting to be decoded. She decided to treat her failure like a research project, not a reputation wound. Stage 1, recognize. She wrote every mistake in a notebook. Poor cash flow control, blind trust, weak contracts. No excuses, only evidence. Stage 2, reframe. Instead of saying, "I'm not built for business," she said, "I just paid tuition in entrepreneurship." That single reframe converted guilt into curiosity. Stage 3, repurpose. She used her hard-won knowledge to start a consultancy for other small traders. Her slogan, "Learn from my losses before you make yours." Within a year, she was training hundreds of market women on record-keeping and negotiation. Stage 4, rebuild. She documented her process, created workshop manuals, and built a microfinance partnership that automated savings for her trainees. Stage 5, repeat. Every quarter, she reviewed her systems, added improvements, and exported the model to 2 neighboring countries. 5 years later, Amina Enterprises manages over 800 million NGN in annual turnover and trains the same banks that once rejected her. Framework extraction, the Phoenix formula. Gear, implementation, outcome. Recognize, honest failure audit. Ownership of data. Reframe, new meaning of defeat. Confidence restored. Repurpose, convert pain into service. Product market proof. Rebuild, document and systemize. Scalability. Repeat, quarterly reflection. Compounding growth. Key lesson, the market rewards self-awareness faster than perfection. Amina stopped trying to look invincible and started operating intelligently. Micro Mission 1, the Phoenix page. Write one page titled, "What My Failures Taught the World." List 3 mistakes, 3 lessons, and 1 way each can serve someone else. Turn your embarrassment into inventory. Case File 2, the Global Challenger brand. Background, when rejection becomes repositioning. A small beverage startup in Accra tried to pitch its natural energy drink to a multinational distributor. They were laughed out of the room. No one will buy a local brand when we already have Red Bull. That sting became strategy. They applied the 5 gears instinctively. Recognize, they accepted the truth. Price and packaging were too weak to compete head-on. Reframe, instead of being less than Red Bull, they became more African than Red Bull. Repurpose, they turned their rejection into a story, the drink made for real hustlers of Accra's heat. Rebuild, they redesigned supply using recycled bottles and neighborhood micro-distributors. Repeat, every quarter they tested flavors, marketing angles, and routes until margins tripled. 5 years later, Vitaforce ships to 8 countries and sponsors local endurance sports. Their Underdog label became their leverage. Lesson, when you can't own the market, own the meaning of the market. Case File 3, the Creator to Corporation arc. Background, turning vulnerability into vertical integration. In 2017, a content creator named Kwame ran a tiny YouTube channel on motivation. His early videos flopped. He nearly quit. Then he treated his pain like data. Gear, his action, result. Recognize, watched every failed upload to find patterns. Learned that stories outperformed advice. Reframe, realized no views meant no connection, began telling his own story. Repurpose, clipped old footage into short reels for Instagram. Audience exploded. Rebuild, formed a 3-person content team and weekly schedule. Consistency equals growth. Repeat, quarterly audits of analytics and tone. Multi-platform brand. By 2023, he'd built a production company that serves global clients. His motto? Document, don't dramatize. Takeaway: emotion without system is art. Emotion with system is enterprise. Case File 4. The Silent Organization. Background: power without performance. In an era when every company tries to shout louder, one logistics firm in Nairobi chose silence. They had no billboards, no flashy campaigns, just ruthless reliability. Their motto: we don't talk fast, we deliver faster. Inside their walls ran the unfair advantage system in pure form. Recognize, they audited every delay and driver complaint weekly. Reframe, problems weren't punishment, they were process indicators. Repurpose, each solved issue became a new standard operating procedure. Rebuild, data dashboards replaced emotional blame. Repeat, monthly reviews closed every loop. While competitors chased attention, they chased accuracy. Within 5 years, they became the back-end partner for 3 multinational e-commerce brands. Lesson: real domination is quiet. Systems speak louder than slogans. Framework: the case file pattern. Across every story, founder, brand, creator, company, the pattern repeats. Stage: personal expression, organizational expression, result. Recognition: radical self-honesty, transparent auditing, truth. Reframing: new meaning for pain, new narrative for brand, freedom. Repurposing: personal service, product innovation, value. Rebuilding: habit design, system design, structure. Repetition: lifestyle rhythm, growth cycle, longevity. This is the pattern of permanence. It proves that resilience is not personality, it's process made visible. D-Achiever Mission: build your own case file. Title it, My Unfair Advantage in Action. Document 5 events that shaped your current success or lessons. Apply the 5 gears to each event. Extract the framework. What system, mindset, or rule did it create? Share one story publicly, a post, podcast, or presentation. Every time you tell a structured story, you turn your journey into curriculum. That's how legends teach without preaching. D-Achiever Insight: proof beats perfection. The world doesn't trust theories anymore. It trusts results that can be traced, measured, and taught. Your case file is living proof that the unfair advantage system works, not because it promises miracles, but because it systematizes mastery. When people see your evidence, they see permission for their own rise. Power quote: results are louder than reasons. Tell fewer stories, show more systems. Transition to Chapter 10, the Ascension Protocol. You've seen the system proven in real lives and real markets. Now it's time to ascend, to integrate everything you've learned into a life architecture that runs at a higher altitude. Chapter 10 unveils the Ascension Protocol, how to sustain peak performance, peace, and purpose simultaneously. Prepare for the next evolution of dominance. Stability in motion.
Chapter 10. The Ascension Protocol. The thin air above the mountain. You've climbed for years. You've broken ceilings, rebuilt systems, and turned pain into power. Now you stand higher than you've ever been. The air is thinner here, quieter, lonelier, and deceptively calm. At the base of the mountain, noise kept you awake. Up here, silence can lull you into drift. This is the danger of arrival. What once felt like victory begins to feel like a vacuum. And if you're not careful, success will become another form of survival. Different altitude, same exhaustion. You didn't fight to reach the top just to plateau. You fought to learn the science of sustained ascent. That is what this chapter gives you, the Ascension Protocol, the discipline of staying sharp, peaceful, and powerful while the world watches you breathe rare air. The Plateau Paradox. When you finally get what you've been chasing, you face a new opponent, emptiness. The paradox of progress is that achievement resets the baseline of desire. The mountain you once prayed to reach now feels like ground floor. That's why many great achievers self-sabotage after success. They miss the tension that built them. If you measure life only by struggle, you won't know what to do with stability. So you manufacture chaos, new arguments, new risks, new distractions, anything to feel alive again. To ascend beyond achievement, you must learn to replace pressure with purpose. Pressure built your power. Purpose preserves it. The world teaches you how to win. Few teach you how to remain worthy of your wins. Ascension begins when you redefine ambition, not as escape from pain, but as stewardship of potential. Framework: the Plateau Diagnosis. Ask yourself these 5 questions each quarter to detect hidden stagnation. Question: signal of stagnation, recalibration move. Am I still chasing validation? You crave applause more than impact. Replace metrics with mission milestones. Do I avoid silence? Fear of reflection. Schedule solitude sessions. Have I stopped learning? Repetition without evolution. Study outside your expertise. Does comfort feel like progress? Busy maintenance. Introduce deliberate difficulty. Who still challenges me? Echo chamber of admirers. Re-enter rooms where you're unknown. A plateau is not punishment. It's an invitation to innovate. It asks, can you expand without external enemies? Subsection: the weight of altitude. Higher ground carries heavier gravity. The higher you climb, the more lives your decisions affect. Employees, families, communities. Success increases responsibility faster than it increases rest. That's why many kings lose kingdoms from exhaustion, not defeat. They conquered nations, but never learned to govern their nervous system. Your next evolution of power is not louder action, it's deeper regulation. Calm becomes the new charisma. Clarity becomes the new conquest. Master your internal altitude, and external altitude will obey. The Ascension Equation. At this level, energy must evolve into elegance. You no longer chase, you calibrate. The formula that sustains altitude is simple but sacred. Vision times virtue times velocity equals vertical growth. Element, description, without it. Vision, a clear direction that stretches beyond ego. You lose focus and drift into distraction. Virtue, values that anchor conduct when power tempts corruption. Success turns hollow. Velocity, the rhythm of execution that keeps momentum alive. Stagnation and decline. Vision keeps you climbing. Virtue keeps you clean. Velocity keeps you conscious that time is not infinite. This equation turns success from event into ecosystem. Internal altitude, the science of staying grounded at the top. Climbing higher doesn't mean leaving yourself behind. Internal altitude is emotional discipline disguised as peace. Master your mind rhythm. Start every morning in alignment, not anxiety. 10 minutes of solitude, gratitude, and visualization recalibrates your nervous system. Leaders who skip silence soon start leaking sanity. Detach identity from achievement. You are not your results. You are the reason behind them. When you stop attaching worth to wins, you unlock creativity again. Cultivate inner counsel. Every great ascender has truth tellers in their circle. Choose 3 people who can challenge your decisions without fearing your titles. Authority without accountability always slides toward arrogance. Audit emotional energy. Keep an emotional budget like a financial one. Track where your joy goes and what conversations deplete it. Protect peace like capital. Inner peace is not retreat, it's reinforcement. The calmest pilot handles the fiercest turbulence. External altitude, scaling without sinking. Domination built your empire. Ascension sustains it. Now you scale outward, not recklessly, but rhythmically. System before scale. Growth without structure is glorified chaos. Expand only what already works. Automate, delegate, then accelerate. Impact before image. Don't chase visibility, chase value. People remember results, not slogans. The loudest brands often die the quietest deaths. Profit with principle. Wealth is neutral until virtue directs it. Every deal must pass the integrity test. If this succeeds, will I still respect myself? Create successors, not slaves. Teach others to build power, not dependence. Legacy is not how much you own, but how many you've equipped. External altitude means scaling impact without losing identity. You climb, but you stay connected to the ground that raised you. Framework, the Ascension Protocol. To stay powerful and peaceful at altitude, run this loop every 90 days. Stage, focus, outcome. Stage 1, calibrate. Revisit vision, values, and velocity. Outcome, clarity. Stage 2, consolidate. Protect what works, prune what drains. Outcome, stability. Stage 3, create. Launch new initiatives that stretch potential. Outcome, expansion. Stage 4, contribute. Serve or teach from experience. Outcome, legacy. This cycle ensures balance between ego and empathy, profit and purpose, speed and soul. When you practice the protocol consistently, altitude no longer feels like pressure, it feels like precision. Case parable, the pilot and the storm line. A pilot once flew through a violent storm. Lightning flashed. Turbulence shook every panel. The crew panicked, but the pilot whispered, "Keep climbing." At 35,000 feet, the storm still raged. Keep climbing. At 40,000 feet, the thunder grew distant. Keep climbing. Finally, they broke through into sunlight, calm, endless blue stretching in every direction. Below them, the storm was still roaring, but it could no longer touch them. When a young co-pilot asked, "How did you know we'd break through?" the captain smiled. Storms have ceilings. Discipline doesn't. That's ascension. The problems don't disappear, they just lose altitude while you keep yours. The Achiever Mission, the Elevation Plan. Follow this 7-day routine to activate the protocol. Day, focus, practice. Day 1, calibrate. Revisit your 5-year vision. Rewrite goals to match current capacity. Day 2, audit. Identify leaks of time, energy, and focus. Eliminate one distraction immediately. Day 3, reconnect. Spend 1 hour with mentors or peers who challenge you. Ask what blind spots they see. Day 4, create. Build or start something new. Send the email, design the product, make the call. Day 5, consolidate. Strengthen existing systems. Document one process that works. Day 6, contribute.
Serve or teach from experience. Share one lesson publicly. Day 7, reflect. Review the week. Celebrate progress without comparing pace. Repeat weekly for 1 month, then quarterly for life. Elevation is not event, it's engineered rhythm. D-Achiever Insight. Altitude as responsibility.
The higher you rise, the more your peace feeds others. People below watch your balance more than your brilliance. Your calm becomes culture. Your discipline becomes direction. True leaders lead atmospheres, not only armies. Stay so anchored that those around you breathe easier when you enter the room. That is the signature of Ascension. Power quote: "Storms have ceilings. Discipline doesn't." Transition to Chapter 11, the Legacy Frame. You've conquered pain, mastered systems, and learned to fly above storms. Now it's time for the final evolution, the Legacy Frame, where domination turns into destiny, and influence becomes inheritance. In the next chapter, you'll design the framework that ensures your work outlives you. Because true victory isn't reaching the top, it's leaving a map. Chapter 11, the Legacy Frame. The echo after the applause. At first, you climb to be seen. Then, if you keep climbing, you realize the view isn't the reward, it's the responsibility. The air is thin up here. The noise that once drove you has faded. No more doubters, no more applause, just silence asking, "What now?" This is where most great ones stumble. They mistake silence for emptiness, when in truth it's an invitation to build something that speaks when they no longer can. Legacy isn't what they remember about you, it's what they continue because of you. The applause fades fast. Systems echo longer. That's why this final stage of the unfair advantage exists, to show you how to translate your power into permanence. Because real immortality isn't mystical, it's mechanical. It's designing life so that your values outlive your voice. Why legacy matters. You've built strength, systems, and structure. But the question that defines eternity is this: will it still work when I'm gone? There are 3 kinds of success stories in this world. The meteor, burns bright, fades fast. The mountain, steady, impressive, but stationary. The river, keeps flowing, nourishing lands it will never see. Legacy builders choose to become rivers. Legacy isn't ego, it's efficiency. It means your life becomes a renewable source of value. Every empire collapses eventually, but what doesn't die is philosophy embedded in people and systems embedded in structure. When those two are fused, legacy begins. The difference between reputation, memory, and legacy. Concept. Lifespan. Source. Nature. Reputation. Temporary. Public opinion. Fragile. Changes with gossip. Memory. Generational. Personal influence. Emotional. Fades after time. Legacy. Perpetual. Institutional systems and immortal ideas. Structural. Survives context. Reputation lives on headlines. Memory lives in hearts. Legacy lives in habits. That's why the wise stop chasing reputation and start designing replacement plans. The day you stop asking, "Who knows me?" and start asking, "Who grows because of me?" that's the day legacy begins. The Legacy Pyramid. Every enduring life or enterprise is built like a pyramid. Wide base, narrow tip. The base anchors in principles, the tip
points toward posterity. Values, vision, vehicles. Level, description, purpose. Values, the moral and spiritual DNA of your existence. They define why you do it. Vision, the big picture your life points toward. It defines what you build. Vehicles, the systems, products, people, and institutions carrying the mission forward. They define how it travels beyond you. If any level is missing, legacy collapses. Vehicles without values breed corruption. Vision without vehicles dies in notebooks. Values without vision breed self-righteous stagnation. Legacy lives only where all three align. Internal legacy, the invisible infrastructure. The first half of your legacy is invisible, character. Long after your name fades, the habits, standards, and mindsets you implanted in people will still govern their choices. Internal legacy has three engines. Character, the standard you refuse to break even when no one's watching. Culture, the emotional climate you create around you. Every team, family, or movement becomes a reflection of your emotional consistency. Continuity of values, passing the why behind your systems, not just the how. You cannot mentor behavior until you model belief. You can't transfer identity if you haven't clarified it. So before you hand anyone your strategies, give them your standards. That's how your spirit travels further than your speech. External legacy, the visible architecture. Internal legacy inspires. External legacy institutionalizes. This is the stage where values and vision turn into vehicles, brands, foundations, digital archives, schools, automation, wealth instruments, structures that think and act when you're gone. Legacy builders operate on three time horizons. Horizon, time frame, focus. Short term, 1 to 3 years. Stabilize and systemize current impact. Can this run without me for a month? Midterm, 4 to 7 years. Build leaders who can multiply your mission. Can it grow without me for a year? Long term, 10 plus years. Transfer philosophy and equity. Can it survive without me forever? Wealth alone doesn't create legacy, it funds it. Legacy requires architecture. Your businesses are the bones, your principles the heartbeat, your people the bloodstream. Together they form a living organism that doesn't die with your body. Subsection, the law of successors. Greatness unshared is greatness unfinished. The proof that you've ascended isn't how many people work for you, it's how many work like you. Train replacements with the same rigor you trained yourself. Document everything you know until your knowledge no longer depends on your memory. If your absence creates panic instead of progression, you've built an idol, not an institution. That's the dividing line between empire and ego. Framework, the legacy frame. Legacy isn't luck, it's logistics. It's the deliberate conversion of your life's essence into executable design. The legacy frame runs on 4 commands. Step, focus, core question, output. 1. Define. Clarify the essence. What do I want to be remembered for? A 1-sentence legacy thesis. 2. Design. Architect the systems that preserve it. What vehicles will carry this mission? Foundations, content, companies, schools, trusts. 3. Deploy. Activate and delegate. Who will continue it, and what will they need? empowered successors, and automated structures. 4. Duplicate. Replicate and scale. How can this replicate without me? Self-sustaining ecosystem. You begin by defining your legacy thesis, a simple statement summarizing your enduring impact. I exist to transform, empower, awaken, audience, by, method. Everything you build should serve that sentence. When the mission is clear, multiplication becomes mechanical. Parable. The builder and the bridge. An old builder spent decades constructing roads across villages. When he turned 80, he announced he was done. As he packed his tools, a boy asked, "Why stop when you're still strong?" He smiled, "Because it's time to build the road they'll use after I'm gone." He began building a bridge over a raging river. Every villager mocked him, "You'll never cross it." He nodded, "It's not for me." Years later, when floods came, the bridge saved every life in the valley. They named it after him, but the old builder's son whispered, "He didn't build it for a name, he built it for a future." That's legacy, constructing solutions for storms you'll never see. The Achiever Mission, the Immortality Project. Spend the next 10 days designing one structure that will outlive you. It can be tangible or digital, personal or corporate, but it must endure. Day 1. Focus. Define. Write your legacy thesis. Day 2. Identify people. List those who will inherit or execute your mission. Day 3. Document. Record one system or principle only you know. Day 4. Digitize. Store or publish it securely. Day 5. Teach. Train someone to apply it. Day 6. Automate. Use tools to run it without constant input. Day 7. Endow. Attach financial or structural support. Days 8 and 9. Review. Test.
Epilogue. The Creed of the Achiever. The Last Fire. You have walked through the forge. You have seen pain melt into purpose, fear turn into focus, and failure refine into fuel. You have learned that destiny isn't discovered, it's designed. That power is not given, it's generated. That advantage isn't inherited, it's engineered. You are not the same person who began this journey. You have outgrown excuses, outlived limitations, and outlasted noise. Now, the fire that once burned against you burns for you. And what remains is not ashes, it is authority. The Achiever Creed. I am forged, not favored. The flames that tried to destroy me became my discipline. I do not run from pain. I convert it into precision. I do not beg for opportunity. I build systems that create it. I do not chase validation. I am my own verification. I am not defined by what I lost. I am defined by what I learned. I am not powered by emotion. I am governed by mission. My legacy will not be luck. It will be logic, structure, and purpose multiplied. I am the architect of advantage, the commander of calm, the maker of meaning. I am the Achiever. The final lesson. Every generation has two kinds of people. Those who inherit systems and those who create them. Those who follow blueprints and those who draw them. You are the latter. The world does not need more dreamers. It needs designers of destiny. So from this day forward, carry your fire into every space. Where others see crisis, you will see construction. Where others collapse, you will recalibrate. Where others end, you will begin again. Sharper, quieter,
stronger. Because you now understand, every disadvantage is an instruction. Every challenge is a chapter. Every failure is feedback. And every scar is strategy. The oath of continuity. Hold this creed as code. When you rise, reach. When you win, document. When you lead, duplicate. When you die, your work must still breathe. Let your systems speak louder than your speech. Let your structure outlive your story. And when the world looks for proof that purpose can outlast pain, they will find it in what you built, and in those you built it for. The voice beyond the book. This is not goodbye. This is ignition. Because the unfair advantage was never a conclusion. It was your calibration. The moment you learned that greatness is not about getting ahead, it's about staying aligned. So breathe deep. Stand tall. Look at the forge you survived and whisper, "The fire was never my enemy. It was my education." Then walk forward, quiet, confident, calculating, ready to keep turning pain into precision until your entire life becomes proof of principle. Final benediction. May your systems never sleep. May your peace never panic. May your purpose never pause. And when history asks what made you unstoppable, let the answer be simple and eternal. I was forged, and I decided to stay on fire.
Author's note: From fire to frequency. When I began writing The Unfair Advantage, I wasn't trying to write a book. I was trying to write a map for myself and for anyone who has ever stood in the middle of chaos asking, "Why me?" This project was born from the moments the world doesn't see, the failures, the doubts, the nights when survival was louder than vision. But it was also born from the quiet conviction that there had to be a method behind pain, a repeatable path from breakdown to breakthrough. That's what The Unfair Advantage became, a field manual for those who refuse to stay broken. If you have made it to this page, understand this: you are no longer a reader, you are an architect. You now hold the formulas that many die searching for. How to translate pain into precision, vision into velocity, and success into structure. So don't let this just be a book you finish. Let it be a system you install. And when you share it with your team, your family, your generation, do it with fire in your eyes. Because you and I share one truth now. We are not just building brands, businesses, or balance sheets. We are building blueprints for immortality.
To the fire that forged me, to every unseen teacher, to every failure that felt final, to every closed door that redirected me, thank you. You were the curriculum I never paid for but could never afford to lose. To those who believed when results didn't yet exist, you were the early investors and an invisible empire. To the thinkers, builders, and believers who keep pushing even when the algorithm is silent, you are the reason this philosophy exists. You are the proof that the ordinary can outlast the overwhelming. And to every listener who will hear these words through De-Achiever Audio, remember this: you are the living continuation of this message. When you act, the book speaks. When you build, the creed breathes. When you teach, the legacy multiplies. From the author. This is not the end. It's the handshake before the next summit. Because the De-Achiever movement doesn't stop at inspiration. It moves into implementation. From here, the journey continues across every voice, every system, and every blueprint we create together. You've heard the creed. You've built the system. Now step into your next evolution
and let your results make the noise. Welcome to De-Achiever Audio, where the fire never dies, and the voice of transformation never fades.
You've just completed The Unfair Advantage, Definitive Edition, a field manual for those who were forged, not favored. Take a breath. What you've heard is not an ending, it's ignition. From this moment, every system, every insight, every scar becomes strategy. You don't chase opportunity, you create it. You don't wait for change, you architect it. Wherever you are in the world, remember, storms have ceilings, discipline doesn't. Carry the fire, build structures that outlive stories. And when history asks what made you unstoppable, let the answer be simple. You decided to stay on fire. Brief pause. This audiobook was produced by De-Achievers Audio, the voice of those who turn pain into precision and purpose into permanence. To explore more audiobooks, systems, and De-Achiever series, follow the next frequency. Because here, the fire never dies, and the voice of transformation never fade. Step 1. Directive. Name the events that shaped you. Question. What happened that I still hide? Step 2. Reinterpret. Change the meaning of the pain. Question. How did that serve me, train me, or toughen me? Step 3. Repurpose. Extract a strategy or skill. Question. What strength or insight did I gain? Step 4. Reinforce. Anchor the lesson into identity. Question. Who am I now because of that experience?
Like, share, and subscribe.